Welcome to Crime Stoppers, presented by Main Street Bank, a production of WTRF7, Love OV, and Crime Stoppers Upper Ohio Valley. I'm Nick Nash, your host, and this week we're taking on a brand new case. And joining me for today's discussion are Sergeant Rob Seyfried of the Wheeling Police Department and retired police officer Greg McKenzie. Hi, guys.
Good morning. Good morning.
So we're talking about a new case, and I'm going to have Mr. McKenzie here kind of give the overview on this because there's really not a whole lot of information out there, but it's a very interesting one. This is a murder that took place in Wheeling on National Road in 2011. The victim's name was Bakare. Now, Greg, give me the overview on this case. What happened in 2011 and what we know about the case?
As it was, May 13th, 2011 was a Friday evening. About 11:47-ish in the evening, officers responded to the area of TJ's on National Road in regards to a gunshot victim who was thrown or climbed out of the car window as the car was moving. What we found out was the victim was Bakare, who was at that time a student at WVU. Previously, he had been a student at Fairmont State University. We have learned through the investigation that came to Wheeling to meet with a guy by the name of Darian Cordell, aka Doobie, for a drug transaction. So they met up. They were supposed to meet at the Wheeling Island Casino. They ultimately met at Hardee's parking lot. Got into the car with at least 3 people. We believe one to be Doobie, but we can't confirm that. They left Hardee's parking lot probably about 11:25 in that area, and the call came out at 11:47 or something like that. There was a body on National Road.
So what we've pieced together from this case is that and this Doobie had planned some sort of drug transaction and met. One was in Columbus, one was in Fairmont. They met in Wheeling as kind of a halfway point. None of these people that we know of were from the Wheeling area.
No.
This was simply just a meeting place.
Correct.
For them.
From what we learned, Doobie and played football together at Fairmont State probably in 2006 to 2008, I believe. Doobie was back in Columbus. They hadn't spoken for approximately 3 years. At some point, Doobie reached out to via Facebook and set up this meeting, and it was supposed to happen at, like I said, at the casino. And his friend Juwan Floyd go to the casino parking lot and wait. Ultimately, calls Doobie, and Doobie says, "I'm at Hardee's." So that's how they got the Hardee's.
So I'm going to ask a few questions about little details of this, and you may or may not have answers to this, but I'm curious. When we were talking about this before we started the show, you pointed out that gets into the vehicle with who we can speculate but not confirm was this Doobie character.
Correct. Nobody was able to verify. Juwan Floyd was there. He saw get into the car with 3 subjects. He can't say who was who in the vehicle. He just knows there was 3 people in there, and then got in the car in the back seat.
Okay, and at that point they turn out onto National Road and then turn at Sheets out towards Bethany Pike.
Correct.
And do something out there. Do we have any idea what happened out in that area?
We have no idea. We don't know where they went. If they went out someplace and parked, we have no idea. But we have video from Sheets that showed the car going that way and the car coming back.
How much later? What's the time frame there?
Maybe 15, 20 minutes or so, something like that.
And at that point, the vehicle comes back onto National Road, is heading west towards TJ's, in the area of TJ's there. And that's where is seen either climbing out of or thrown out of the vehicle with a gunshot wound.
Correct.
And the vehicle keeps moving west.
There were a couple people standing outside of TJ's having a smoke break. They reported they heard a gunshot and then the body coming out of the car. I think one described it as being thrown out. The other might have described it as like climbing out of the car.
So we can determine that he was shot in that instant. He hadn't been shot when they were out on Bethany Pike and he was still in the vehicle. We believe that he was shot while they were moving in the vehicle on National Road.
I believe there was one gunshot to his body, and according to the witnesses there, they heard what they described as a gunshot, correct?
Okay, so while all of this is happening, Am's buddy, who is still with the vehicle at Hardee's, sees the commotion, comes over to check things out, realizes it's his buddy Am, and then skedaddles?
I don't know that he realized at that point. He saw all the commotion, so he walks from the car at Hardee's parking lot down to the Exxon, which is right past West Banco Bank, right there, drive-through bank. He goes to the Exxon while all this commotion is going on and talks to the clerk, and I believe the clerk had said that somebody got thrown out of the moving vehicle, but he didn't know at that time exactly who it was.
Okay. Rob, I'll turn to you. What was your involvement in this case at the time or afterwards? How much hands-on involvement did you have in this investigation?
I didn't have any hands-on involvement with this investigation. I was a patrol officer at the time, and I wasn't working, so I've had no actual investigation or involvement in this case.
Okay. What is the state of the case right now? Where is the investigation?
Well, it's suspended because we have chased down every lead that we can, and hopefully with this show we'll be able to generate some maybe new eyewitnesses coming forward that can identify one or all of the individuals in the car with
Okay.
Am.
And I think at this point, immediately following the events that took place, I think the initial person that you would want to speak with is this Cordell gentleman, because that is who is assumed to have been discussing this transaction with Am, and is believed possibly to have been one of the individuals in the car. Has he ever been spoken to?
Detectives he had got picked up in Columbus, Ohio on an unrelated charge. So we had two detectives go down there not long after this, and they attempted to interview him. They introduced themselves, and he said he needed a lawyer, wanted a lawyer, and that was the last.
So there was never
Contact we had.
any more questioning
No.
or anything after that?
No, they left a business card with him to give to his attorney, and that we have never heard anything from his attorney.
Is there a reason, and I don't know the ins and outs of who you're allowed to speak with or what the rules are as far as, a lawyer, getting in between you and this person. When I say you, I mean law enforcement. But was there a reason why it wasn't pushed any harder, or was it pushed as hard as it possibly could have been without any real evidence that this person was involved? That it just was that kind of a roadblock?
It was, but every lead that we had, we followed up on, but we could never get one solid lead that put Darian Cordell in that vehicle at that time. We know that, we believe with great certainty that he's the one that set this deal up. And was he in that car? I tend to believe he was, but we can't prove that. He could have been the one just behind the scenes pulling the strings and making Am believe he was in the car, but we don't have any proof that he was in that car that night.
Now, there's a lot of characters here that were people involved, and we're bouncing around with different names, but Am's buddy, who was still in the car at Hardee's, have you spoken with him?
Juwan was interviewed, yes, and he
was cooperative?
Was fully cooperative, correct,
Yep.
yes.
Did you get any information from him as far as who might have been in the vehicle? I know you said he was not able to 100% confirm that it was Cordell in the vehicle, but was he able to offer any other information as far as who the other individuals might be?
He did not. He just says that he saw 3 subjects in that car, but he did not know any of them.
Okay, so as far as what we can do at Crime Stoppers to help further this case or gain any more leads, what sort of things are you looking for? Are you looking for people that may have been in that area who were at TJ's maybe that night, or that saw something, or somebody that maybe knows these individuals?
Well, I mean, we talked to people who were there, but after that initial trauma, if you were there and didn't speak to law enforcement, or if you were there and did speak to law enforcement, if you remember anything, other details about what happened that night, or what you may have heard, or what you may have seen, it's crucial to reach out to Sergeant Seyfried at the police department and give that kind of information to him.
Rob, anything to add to that?
I think just the thing that would really help this case out and push it along would be someone to come forward with information about the individuals who were in that car.
Okay. So we're going to stay on this. I want to do a second episode on this one and just follow up on what we can find out. And we really want to hammer home, of course, like we always do with Crime Stoppers. If you know anything, if you've heard anything, even if it's insignificant or you think it's insignificant, it's worth picking up the phone and calling the tip line, 1-877-TIPS for us. It's 1-877-TIPS, the number 4 US, and find out who knows what about these individuals, about what happened that night. Maybe you saw them on National Road. Maybe you saw them out Bethany Pike. Now, Bethany Pike heads out towards Oglebay. They weren't gone long enough, I don't think, to head all the way up to Oglebay and back. And there would be no reason to believe that they went that way, or for what reason.
I would say they probably went, and there's places back there they can pull off.
Right.
So I don't think they went clear to Oglebay. They went out there and made their transaction and then came back through.
Another question that just occurred to me about the drug transaction: was there ever any evidence that an actual transaction took place? Was there anything on Ahm's person after his body was found that said, maybe he had a large amount of cash or an amount of drugs? Do you know anything about that?
I believe he still had some cash on him.
Okay.
Though we had conflicting reports about how much money he brought up here, so we don't know for sure exactly how much money he brought up as opposed to what he had on his person when they recovered him.
What do you know about the transaction itself? Do you know what type of drugs were being exchanged, or do you know who the buyer was, who the seller was?
From what we learned, what we found out, it was just that Ahm was supposed to buy as much marijuana from Doobie as possible with what the money he had.
But you don't know that transaction ever took place?
We don't know. We didn't recover any marijuana, any substantial amount of marijuana from the body, so I think it's safe to say that the assailants in the vehicle got the cash and kept the drugs as well.
So we don't like to speculate on the show, but if we were going to speculate towards what could possibly have happened, it sounds like maybe there was a disagreement during the transaction, or it was a scam, and maybe there was never any drugs that were going to be sold. They swiped his money, shot him, and took off. Obviously, I don't think there's anything to confirm any of that, but something shaky went down, and Ahm was the victim there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that this young man came up here to what he thought was his friend from playing football together, and ends up getting himself killed.
So we're going to follow up on this. There's a few things I want to run through over the next week or so. But again, if anybody knows anything about this transaction, or maybe you were a student at Fairmont State or WVU when Ahm and Doobie were there, reach out. We'd like to know more information about that. Call the tip line, 877-TIPS for us. And of course, follow us on the Crime Stoppers page and the Love OV page for more information on this. This has been Crime Stoppers, presented by Main Street Bank, a production of WTRF7, Love OV, and Crime Stoppers Upper Ohio Valley. Rob, guys, thank you so much for being here, and we'll keep in touch.
Thank you.